Captain Sarah Phoenix Mitchell adjusted her flight suit one final time as she walked across the tarmac toward the sleek F-22 Raptor that would either make or break her career. The morning sun cast long shadows across Nellis Air Force Base, and every step felt like walking toward Judgment Day. Behind her, she could feel the weight of dozens of eyes watching from the tower, including those of Admiral Robert Harrison, the man who had made it crystal clear that he believed she didn't belong here. The F-22 program was the crown jewel of American air superiority, and Sarah knew she was only the third woman ever selected for the elite squadron. The previous two had washed out within months, and Harrison had used their failures as ammunition for his belief that women simply couldn't handle the physical and mental demands of flying the world's most advanced fighter jet. Sarah had heard the whispers in the briefing rooms and mess halls. "She's only here because of politics," they said. "Diversity quota," others muttered. Even some of the younger pilots, who should have been more progressive, seemed skeptical. The pressure was suffocating, but Sarah had faced doubt before. Growing up as the daughter of a mechanic in small-town Montana, she had learned early that proving herself was a daily requirement, not a one-time event. Her path to this moment had been anything but easy. After graduating summa cum laude from the Air Force Academy, she had excelled in every training program, finishing at the top of her pilot training class and earning her wings with distinction. She had flown combat missions in F-16s over hostile territory, earning a Distinguished Flying Cross for a mission where she had single-handedly taken out 3 enemy aircraft while protecting a convoy of ground troops. Her record was spotless, her skills undeniable, yet here she stood, still having to prove that she deserved to be among the elite. The F-22 Raptor towered above her as she approached, its angular stealth design making it look more like a piece of art than a machine of war. This aircraft represented the pinnacle of aerospace engineering, capable of cruising at Mach 1.5 without afterburners and equipped with the most advanced avionics and weapon systems ever developed. Only the best of the best were chosen to fly it. And Sarah knew that every mission would be a test. Her crew chief, Master Sergeant Rodriguez, met her at the aircraft with a knowing smile. He had worked with dozens of pilots over his 20-year career and had developed an eye for those who had what it took. "She's ready for you, Captain," he said, patting the aircraft's nose. "All systems green and the weather's perfect for flying." Sarah nodded, running through her pre-flight mental checklist. Today's mission was supposedly routine, a training exercise designed to test her ability to integrate with the squadron's tactics and procedures. But she knew it was really an evaluation. Admiral Harrison would be monitoring every radio call, every maneuver, every decision she made. One mistake, and he would have the ammunition he needed to recommend her removal from the program. As she climbed into the cockpit, Sarah felt the familiar surge of excitement that came with strapping into a fighter jet. The F-22's cockpit was a marvel of modern technology, with multifunction displays providing a god's-eye view of the battle space around her. She went through her startup procedures with methodical precision, each switch and button activation bringing the sleeping giant to life. "Phoenix, this is Control," came the voice through her headset. "You are cleared for engine start and taxi when ready." Phoenix copies Control, beginning engine start sequence. The twin Pratt & Whitney engines spooled up with a distinctive whine that grew to a powerful roar. Sarah felt the familiar vibration through her seat as 44,000 pounds of thrust came online. This was where she belonged, where all the doubt and politics faded away, replaced by the pure joy of flight. As she taxied toward the runway, Sarah caught sight of Admiral Harrison in the tower. Even from this distance, she could see his stern expression. The man was a decorated veteran with over 30 years of service, and his opinion carried enormous weight throughout the Air Force. His skepticism wasn't born of malice, she knew, but from genuine concern about maintaining the standards that made American air power the envy of the world. He had seen too many compromises made in the name of progress, and he wasn't about to let politics compromise the F-22 program. "Phoenix, you are cleared for takeoff. Good hunting out there." Sarah advanced the throttles, feeling the incredible power of the F-22 push her back into her seat. The aircraft accelerated down the runway with authority, and within seconds, she was airborne, climbing rapidly into the Nevada sky. As the ground fell away beneath her, Sarah allowed herself a moment to appreciate the sheer performance of the machine she was flying. The F-22 climbed like a rocket, its thrust-to-weight ratio allowing it to defy gravity in ways that seemed almost supernatural. Her mission today was to join up with 4 other F-22s from the squadron for a simulated air-to-air combat exercise. The scenario was designed to test her ability to work as part of a team while demonstrating her individual flying skills. The other pilots were all seasoned veterans with hundreds of hours in the Raptor, and they would be evaluating her just as critically as the brass in the tower. Phoenix, this is Viper Lead. Welcome to the party. Hope you're ready to dance. Major Tom. Viper Stevens was the squadron's operations officer and one of the most respected F-22 pilots in the Air Force. His voice carried the easy confidence of someone who had proven himself countless times in the cockpit. Sarah had studied his record extensively. He was a former weapons school instructor with multiple combat deployments and a reputation for tactical brilliance. Phoenix is ready, Viper Lead. Let's see what this bird can do. The next hour would be crucial. Sarah knew that her performance in this single mission would either open doors or close them forever. As she climbed toward the training area, she pushed all thoughts of politics and prejudice from her mind. Up here, 30,000 feet above the Nevada desert, only one thing mattered: her ability to fly and fight better than anyone else in the sky. The radio crackled with tactical communications as the 4-ship formation took shape around her. Sarah slotted into the number 3 position, maintaining perfect formation discipline while her sensors painted a picture of the airspace around them. The F-22's stealth capabilities meant they were virtually invisible to enemy radar, but the exercise today would pit them against a Red Air aggressor force flying modified F-16s, designed to simulate enemy fighters. All aircraft, this is Red Crown. Exercise is live. Threat aircraft are airborne and approaching from the north. Viper Flight, you are cleared to engage. This was it. Sarah's hands moved instinctively over the controls as she prepared for combat. Every hour of training, every simulation, every moment of doubt had led to this. Somewhere out there, enemy fighters were hunting for them, and she would have to prove that she could not only survive but dominate in aerial combat. The F-22's advanced radar system began detecting contacts at extreme range, well beyond the capability of any other fighter aircraft. Sarah watched as targets appeared on her display, analyzing their flight patterns and trying to predict their intentions. The beauty of the F-22 was that it could see everything while remaining virtually invisible itself. Phoenix, Viper Lead. I've got 4 bandits bearing 010, Angels 20. They're in a combat spread. Probably looking for trouble? Phoenix copies. I hold the same contacts. Request permission to maneuver for advantage. There was a brief pause before Viper Lead responded, and Sarah could almost hear him evaluating her request. Asking for permission to maneuver independently was bold for a new pilot, but it also showed tactical thinking and confidence. Phoenix, approved. Show us what you've got. Sarah banked her F-22 to the right, using the aircraft's incredible maneuverability to position herself for what she hoped would be a perfect attack. The key to success in air-to-air combat was seeing the enemy before they saw you, and the F-22's stealth and sensors gave her that advantage. She climbed to 40,000 feet, using the thin air at altitude to mask her approach. Below her, the Red Air aggressors continued their search pattern, unaware that death was stalking them from above. Sarah's targeting system locked onto the lead aircraft, and she prepared to make her first simulated kill of the exercise. Everything had to be perfect. One mistake now, and Admiral Harrison would have all the evidence he needed to prove his point about women in combat. As she prepared to engage, Sarah felt a calm settle over her that she had experienced only a few times in her flying career. This was what she had trained for, what she had dreamed of since she was a little girl, watching fighter jets fly over her hometown. The doubt, the pressure, the politics, none of it mattered now. She was exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was born to do. The engagement was about to begin, and Sarah Phoenix Mitchell was ready to show the world what she was capable of. In the tower below, Admiral Harrison watched and waited, his skepticism about to be challenged in ways he never imagined possible. The young woman he doubted was about to change everything, starting with this single moment high above the Nevada desert where legends were born and careers were made. Sarah's finger hovered over the trigger as her F-22's weapon system achieved a perfect lock on the lead Red Air fighter below. The targeting computer showed optimal firing parameters, and every instinct told her to take the shot. But something felt wrong. Years of combat experience had taught her to trust her gut, and right now, her gut was screaming that this was a trap. She quickly scanned her displays again, looking for what her subconscious had detected. There, a faint radar signature at the edge of her sensor range, barely visible but definitely there. A fifth aircraft that hadn't been briefed in the intelligence picture. The Red Air aggressors had set up a classic bracket, with 4 fighters in plain sight while the fifth waited in ambush. Viper lead Phoenix. I hold a 5th bandit in the weeds, bearing 270 low altitude. Looks like they've got a shooter positioned for a trap. The radio was silent for several long seconds. Sarah could imagine Viper lead checking his own displays, trying to confirm her observation. The F-22's sensors were incredibly sensitive, but detecting a low-flying fighter at maximum range required both skill and intuition. Phoenix, Viper lead. I'm not showing anything on that bearing. Are you sure? Sarah's heart rate increased slightly. This was the moment where she either proved her worth or revealed herself as inexperienced. In the tower, she knew Admiral Harrison was listening to every word, ready to pounce on any sign of weakness or poor judgment. But her training had taught her to trust her instruments and her instincts, even when others couldn't see what she saw. Viper lead, Phoenix is certain. Recommend we adjust our attack vector to account for the threat. Phoenix, maintain formation and prepare for the original attack plan. All aircraft, weapons free on briefed targets. Sarah felt a moment of doubt creep in. Viper lead was a highly experienced pilot with an impeccable reputation. If he wasn't seeing the threat she had detected, maybe she was wrong. Maybe the stress and pressure were causing her to see things that weren't there. The smart play would be to follow orders and hope for the best. But as she looked at her display again, the contact was still there, still tracking toward a perfect intercept position. Every fiber of her being told her that flying into this trap would be a disaster. She had 2 choices: follow orders and hope she was wrong, or trust her training and risk her career. Viper lead, Phoenix is breaking right to engage the 5th bandit. I cannot ignore this threat. Phoenix, negative. Return to formation immediately. But Sarah was already pulling her F-22 into a sharp right turn, using the aircraft's incredible agility to reposition for an attack on the hidden threat. As she maneuvered, her radar gained a stronger lock on the contact, confirming what she had suspected. It was definitely an enemy fighter, positioned perfectly to attack the squadron as they focused on the 4 obvious targets. The F-22 responded to her inputs like a living thing, its fly-by-wire controls making impossible maneuvers feel effortless. She rolled, inverted, and pulled toward the threat, using gravity to help accelerate toward her target. The aircraft's heads-up display showed her closing speed approaching Mach 1.2 as she dove toward the hidden aggressor. All aircraft, be advised I have visual on a 5th bandit. Phoenix was right, it's a trap. Viper lead's voice cut through the radio chatter with new urgency. Sarah allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction before focusing on the task at hand. The hidden fighter had detected her approach and was turning to engage, but the F-22's stealth and speed gave her a crucial advantage. Her weapon system achieved lock-on, and she squeezed the trigger, sending a simulated AM-120 missile toward the threat. In a real combat scenario, the enemy fighter would have been destroyed before its pilot even knew he was under attack. The exercise controller's voice confirmed the kill over the radio. Red 5 is down. Clean kill by Phoenix. But the engagement was far from over. With the hidden threat eliminated, Sarah now had to rejoin her squadron as they engaged the 4 remaining enemy fighters. The problem was that her aggressive maneuver to attack the 5th bandit had left her separated from her wingmen, alone and potentially vulnerable. Phoenix, Viper lead. Nice work on that bandit. Can you get back into the fight? Sarah checked her position and smiled grimly. Her attack on the hidden fighter had actually positioned her perfectly for something she had only attempted in simulators: a high-speed vertical attack on the remaining enemy formation. It would require split-second timing and perfect execution, but if it worked, she could eliminate multiple targets in a single pass. Viper lead, Phoenix has an idea. I'm positioned for a vertical attack on the remaining bandits. Request permission to engage. Another pause on the radio. Sarah could imagine the debate happening between Viper lead and the controllers in the tower. A vertical attack was incredibly dangerous and required precise judgment. If she misjudged the geometry, she could easily collide with friendly aircraft or position herself for an easy shot by the enemy. Phoenix, you're cleared for independent engagement. Don't do anything stupid up there. Sarah smiled as she pulled the F-22 into a climb, trading speed for altitude as she positioned herself directly above the ongoing engagement. Below her, the 3 remaining fighters from her squadron were maneuvering against 4 red air aggressors in a complex aerial ballet that would have been impossible to follow from the ground. The beauty of the F-22 was its ability to maintain situational awareness, even in the chaos of multi-aircraft combat. Sarah's displays showed her the exact position and heading of every aircraft in the engagement, allowing her to time her attack perfectly. She rolled inverted and pulled the nose down, diving toward the enemy formation at nearly the speed of sound. The radio erupted with excited chatter as her squadron mates realized what she was attempting. A vertical attack was a classic fighter pilot maneuver that dated back to World War I, but performing it in an F-22 at supersonic speeds required a level of skill and confidence that few pilots possessed. Phoenix is in hot, attacking from high. Her targeting system cycled rapidly between the enemy fighters below, the computer calculating intercept solutions faster than any human mind could process. Sarah selected her targets in order of priority, focusing on the aircraft that posed the greatest threat to her squadron mates. The first simulated missile left her aircraft as she screamed down from above, followed immediately by a second and third as her weapon system engaged multiple targets simultaneously. The F-22's ability to carry 8 air-to-air missiles internally while maintaining its stealth profile made it a devastating opponent in air-to-air combat. Red 2 is down. Red 3 is down. Red 4 is down. Sarah pulled out of her dive just above the deck, the massive G-forces pushing her deep into her seat as the F-22's aerodynamics fought to keep the aircraft intact. Her vision grayed at the edges from the acceleration, but she maintained control, pulling the aircraft through a series of defensive maneuvers as she egressed from the engagement area. Phoenix, Viper lead. That was either the stupidest thing I've ever seen or the most brilliant. Probably both. The radio discipline broke down as her squadron mates whooped and cheered over the frequency. In less than 5 minutes, Sarah had single-handedly eliminated 5 enemy aircraft using tactics that would have made Chuck Yeager proud. But more importantly, she had proven that her situational awareness and tactical thinking were every bit as good as any pilot in the squadron. As she climbed back to altitude for the return to base, Sarah allowed herself to think about what had just happened. She had gone against direct orders from a superior officer, risked her career on a gut feeling, and executed a complex attack that could have easily resulted in disaster. But she had been right about the threat, and her aggressive tactics had turned a potential ambush into a decisive victory. All aircraft, this is Red Crown. Exercise terminated. Return to base immediately. The flight back to Nellis was subdued, with minimal radio chatter as each pilot processed what they had witnessed. Sarah knew that her performance would be analyzed and debated for weeks to come. Some would argue that she had been reckless and insubordinate. Others would praise her tactical instincts and aggressive execution. But as she turned on final approach to the runway, Sarah caught sight of the control tower where Admiral Harrison was watching. She couldn't see his expression from this distance, but she knew that everything had changed in the span of that single mission. The question now was whether the change would work in her favor or against her. As her F-22 touched down on the runway, Sarah felt the familiar satisfaction that came with a successful mission. But she also felt something else, a growing confidence that she truly belonged among the elite pilots of the F-22 program. Whatever Admiral Harrison's reaction might be, she had proven something important to herself and to her squadron mates. The real test, however, was yet to come. In a few minutes, she would face the debrief that would determine her future in the program. Admiral Harrison would be there, along with her squadron commander and the other pilots who had witnessed her performance. The young woman who had climbed into the cockpit that morning as an outsider was about to discover whether her actions had earned her a place among legends. The briefing room at Nellis Air Force Base had never felt smaller. Sarah sat at the polished conference table, still wearing her flight suit, facing a panel of senior officers that included Admiral Harrison, Colonel Patricia Reynolds, who commanded the F-22 squadron, and Major Stevens. The smell of coffee and jet fuel permeated the air, mixing with the tension that seemed to crackle between the walls. Admiral Harrison sat at the head of the table, his weathered face unreadable as he reviewed the flight data on his tablet. For 23 minutes, the room had been silent except for the occasional rustle of papers and the distant sound of aircraft operations outside. Sarah had learned long ago that silence in these situations was rarely a good sign. Colonel Reynolds finally broke the quiet, her voice measured but carrying an undertone that Sarah couldn't quite identify. "Captain Mitchell, your performance today was certainly unconventional. Major Stevens, would you care to provide your assessment of the exercise?" Viper Lead cleared his throat, and Sarah could see him choosing his words carefully. "Colonel, Captain Mitchell demonstrated exceptional situational awareness in detecting the fifth aggressor aircraft that our intelligence had missed. Her initial assessment of the tactical situation was accurate, and her decision to engage the threat, while contrary to my direct orders, ultimately prevented what could have been a successful enemy ambush." Admiral Harrison looked up from his tablet for the first time since the debriefing began. His pale blue eyes fixed on Sarah with an intensity that made her want to shift in her seat, but she maintained her composure and met his gaze directly. "Captain, you disobeyed a direct order from your flight leader. In combat, that kind of insubordination could get people killed. How do you justify your actions?" Sarah had been expecting this question and had rehearsed her answer during the flight back to base. But now, faced with Admiral Harrison's steely stare, she decided to speak from her heart rather than from a prepared script. "Sir, you're absolutely right that I disobeyed Major Stevens' order. In a perfect world, I would have found a way to communicate the threat more effectively and convince him to adjust our tactics accordingly. But in that moment, I had to choose between following orders and preventing what I believed would be a catastrophic ambush of our formation." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "My training taught me that the primary mission of any fighter pilot is to protect their wingmen and accomplish the objective. In my judgment, following the original attack plan would have resulted in the loss of multiple aircraft to the hidden threat. I accept full responsibility for my decision and any consequences that result from it." Admiral Harrison leaned back in his chair, his expression still unreadable. "And the vertical attack you executed? That maneuver hasn't been successfully performed in combat conditions since the Korean War. What made you think you could pull it off in an F-22? This question surprised Sarah. She had expected to be criticized for the aggressive maneuver, not asked about its tactical merits. "Sir, the F-22's unique combination of stealth, speed, and maneuverability creates opportunities for tactics that weren't possible in earlier generation aircraft. The vertical attack allowed me to engage multiple targets simultaneously while minimizing my exposure to enemy fire. And if you had misjudged the geometry? If you had collided with one of your squadron mates during the attack?" Sarah felt sweat beading on her forehead despite the air conditioning. "Sir, I calculated the risks and believed they were acceptable given the tactical situation. The F-22's flight control systems and my training provided sufficient margins for safety." "But you're correct that it was a high-risk maneuver," Colonel Reynolds interjected, consulting her own notes. "The telemetry data shows that Captain Mitchell's aircraft pulled 9.2 Gs during the recovery from her dive. That's at the upper limit of what both the aircraft and pilot can safely handle. Sarah, what was your physical condition during that phase of the flight?" "Colonel, I experienced some peripheral vision loss due to the G loading, but I maintained consciousness and control throughout the maneuver. The F-22's G-suit and life support systems performed flawlessly." Admiral Harrison stood abruptly and walked to the large window overlooking the flight line. Sarah watched him stare out at the rows of F-22s parked on the tarmac, their angular shapes gleaming in the afternoon sun. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but was probably only a few seconds. "Captain Mitchell," he said without turning around, In 32 years of military service, I have seen hundreds of pilots pass through advanced training programs. Most are competent. Some are good. A very few are exceptional. He turned back to face the room, and Sarah was surprised to see something that might have been a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. What you demonstrated today wasn't just exceptional flying. It was exceptional leadership under pressure. You saw a threat that others missed, you made a decision that others wouldn't have made, and you executed a plan that others couldn't have executed. Sarah felt her heart rate increase, but she wasn't sure if it was from relief or continued anxiety. Admiral Harrison's tone had shifted, but his next words would determine her fate in the F-22 program. However, he continued, and Sarah's stomach dropped, your willingness to disobey direct orders concerns me greatly. In a combat environment, unit cohesion and adherence to command structure can mean the difference between victory and catastrophe. Colonel Reynolds nodded. Sarah, we need to address this aspect of your performance. While your tactical instincts were correct, your communication and leadership approach needs refinement. Going forward, you'll be enrolled in advanced tactical leadership courses alongside your regular F-22 training. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. Additional training wasn't ideal, but it wasn't dismissal from the program either. Yes, ma'am. I understand and accept that requirement. Admiral Harrison returned to his seat and opened a folder that Sarah hadn't noticed before. Captain, there's one more matter we need to discuss. The call sign Phoenix was assigned to you during initial processing, but call signs in the F-22 community are traditionally earned through demonstrated performance. Sarah's confusion must have shown on her face because Major Stevens chuckled. What the Admiral is trying to say is that your performance today was so remarkable that it's going to become legendary. Stories about the pilot who detected the stealth ambush and executed a perfect vertical attack are already spreading through the fighter community. The call sign Phoenix suddenly seems quite appropriate, Admiral Harrison continued. Rising from the ashes of doubt and proving yourself through fire. But more importantly, your tactical innovation today is going to change how we think about F-22 employment in multi-threat environments. Colonel Reynolds pulled out another document. Sarah, we're recommending you for immediate assignment to the weapons school as an instructor pilot candidate. Your understanding of F-22 capabilities and your ability to think creatively in combat situations are exactly what we need to develop the next generation of Raptor pilots. Sarah felt the room spinning slightly. Weapons school was the pinnacle of fighter pilot achievement, reserved for the absolute best pilots in each aircraft community. Being recommended after a single training mission was almost unprecedented. Sir, ma'am, I'm honored by the recommendation, but I feel like I have much more to learn before I'm ready to teach others. Admiral Harrison's smile became more pronounced. Captain, humility is an excellent quality in a fighter pilot, but false modesty is not. What you accomplished today required not just technical skill, but tactical innovation and courage under pressure. Those are exactly the qualities we need in our instructor pilots. He stood and extended his hand to Sarah. 6 months ago, I believed that women didn't belong in the F-22 program. I was wrong. Not because standards should be lowered or exceptions made, but because I failed to recognize that excellence comes in many forms. Your performance today didn't just prove that you belong in this program, it proved that the program is better because you're in it. Sarah stood and shook the Admiral's hand, still struggling to process what had just happened. In the span of a single morning, she had gone from being a pilot on probation to being recommended for the most prestigious assignment in the fighter community. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. Captain, Admiral Harrison said as he gathered his papers, I don't think that's possible. But more importantly, you've already inspired a generation of young women who dream of flying fighters. That may be the most important victory of all. As the senior officers filed out of the briefing room, Major Stevens lingered behind. Sarah, he said, dropping the formal military bearing for a moment, I owe you an apology. When you called out that fifth bandit, I should have trusted your judgment instead of doubting it. That's a mistake I won't make again. Tom, you were following the intelligence picture you were given. I just got lucky with my sensors. No, he shook his head firmly. It wasn't luck. It was skill, instinct, and courage. The combination that makes legends. As Sarah walked out of the briefing room and onto the flight line, She looked up at the F-22s parked in neat rows. Tomorrow, she would climb into one of these incredible machines again, but now she would do so as a proven member of the world's most elite fighter squadron. The young woman who had once been dismissed as a diversity hire had become Phoenix, a pilot whose name would be spoken with respect in ready rooms around the world. Admiral Harrison's doubts had been transformed into admiration, and Sarah had found her place among the legends of American military aviation. In the distance, another F-22 was taking off for an afternoon training mission, its twin engines leaving trails of heat shimmer in the desert air. Sarah watched it climb toward the clouds and smiled, knowing that somewhere up there, another pilot was pursuing their own dreams of excellence. And now, thanks to what had happened today, those dreams seemed a little more achievable for everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong.